Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Be a Bestseller 5.0, How to Be an Authorpreneur. And the purpose of this series is to help you start, finish, and publish your book so that you can start your own authorpreneur journey. And today's lovely guest is the romance writer, Danica Bloom. Danica is a US Today best-selling romance author and mentor to early career romance writers. Prior to writing scenes that take place between silk sheets, Danica was a financial literacy and business plan coach, helping new entrepreneurs develop realistic cash flow spreadsheets for Canada's second largest credit union. And that is putting us, we know we're in good hands then today, because we're going to be talking about from pen to profit, financial strategies for emerging writers. So welcome, Danica. So good to have you here.
Thank you, Emma. It's lovely to be back.
So this is going to be a great discussion, I think, because it's something we all know is there, the financials of being an author, whether you be traditionally published or you be independently published. But it's hard to kind of find really good information about what that looks like and what we should be thinking about as new authors. And we'll come into it in more detail later, and I'll probably share my own mistakes as we go. But for those who haven't yet met you, would you share just a little bit how you went from financial planning to Between Silk Sheets?
Right between, maybe that's a little bit, too much, the silk sheets to the spreadsheets or the spreadsheets, silk sheets. But it actually, this was a pivot. I was an author before. I've been a career ghostwriter for financial literacy for over 10 years. And I had one of those COVID career pivots and had been in the fiction and romance writing community for years as the vice president of our local RWA chapter for a couple of terms. And so I was really immersed in the romance, but working more on nonfiction and the opportunity delivering financial literacy workshops was part of what I did, and that kind of went away in March 2020. And so I put my pen to more creative endeavors, and that's how I ended up writing romance. And I've got now 5 full-length novels, 4 novellas of romance published, and some low-content books as well. So I've indie published now as Danica Bloom 12, I believe, books, and then as in nonfiction, I've also indie published 2. So
wow, that's good going. But certainly we've known each other for a good few years now, so I know that you have been in and around the space even prior to COVID and that transition.
Oh yeah, no, I've definitely been in the fiction writing or the indie author sphere. I did indie publish my first book in 2016, which is, I will mention, the financial impact of that story, that book, which was is a case study in what not to do.
Well, they're just as valuable, aren't they, as what to do. And so if we're thinking about people who are beginning their authorpreneur journey, what, in your experience, what should we be thinking about? What are the kind of realistic startup costs for a new author?
Yeah, well, the first thing I want to say is, like, as a new author, we don't talk about this very much, or I find that I don't see people differentiating between author startup costs and publishing costs. There's lots of talk about publishing costs, right? Mm-hmm. So I was trying to think of a metaphor or analogy. Like, author startup costs would be something like opening up a restaurant. So you secure your location, you design your interior and get trained in culinary skills. You learn the restaurant business, but you have never made or sold a meal, and you might never, right? You've got this business, but it doesn't mean that you're making and selling meals, where publishing costs would be similar to actually having the restaurant open and serving the meal that's on the menu, right? So preparing the dish, which would be writing the book and plating it, getting a great book cover, serving it to customers, and that would be putting it online. So I really want to talk about some of those author startup costs, because we just don't talk about them a lot, and there are a lot of them. So one of the things to consider when you're starting as an authorpreneur, even if you've actually published books and you haven't done this work, I think it's a valuable work to do, thinking about what your ultimate goal is as an author, because that Like, are you going to start a food truck, or are you going to try to have a Michelin 5-star restaurant? It makes a difference in the costs that you want to invest in. So this is a place where you might want to take notes, because I have a list of the startup costs to consider. Now, every author does not have to invest in all of these, but eventually over time, if you're going to be writing for a while, odds are you will be spending money on these things. So having a sense of that this expense is coming is really valuable. So
Can I just ask, when you're sort of saying to think about what that ultimate goal is, do you mean for some people that's going to be I want to write 2 books, 2 memoirs about periods of my life, and that'll be me happy?
Yeah.
Or I have this passion book that I want to get out, just one fantastic novel, and then that'll be me. Or I want to have a career out of this, and I want to have an income, and blah blah blah. So just understanding, yeah.
Exactly. I couldn't have explained it better. That is exactly what I mean. It's where this journey is taking you. So if you're so when I think of, pardon me,
little frog in your throat. I know it always happens at the most inopportune times, doesn't it?
I know, it's sorry, excuse me. When I think of being an authorpreneur, I think of the person who is probably intending on spending at least 50% of their time on writing, and expecting and planning to be earning an income with their writing. So yeah, when I published my first book, I wasn't an authorpreneur. I just had that book that I had to write and had to publish. And there was a big gap between that one and the next one, because I was not planning to be, I was a career ghostwriter at that point. So making the pivot to becoming an authorpreneur and looking at my income, and my husband's retired, so now my writing income has to change. It makes a big difference on how we plan. So that's right. All right. So things to consider as an authorpreneur. Education and training. So that would be your professional development. These are things that we will probably all eventually spend money on. So the writing workshops, courses, conferences, books on writing craft, being the business of being an author, that would be education and training. And these are all items that one would go on a spreadsheet that you give to your accountant, for instance, or if you do your own accounting at the end of the year, because as an authorpreneur, we are also tracking all of our expenses and income, because it has a tax implication. And until you're earning money, it's a positive tax implication. So you really want to be saving all of your receipts in a good place. Writing tools and software. So Scrivener, if you buy that, Atticus, ButterDocs, Vellum, subscription services that help you as a writer. These aren't your publishing ones, though. This is, you're still in the building, the business, the restaurant, right? Author platform development is the third one. So those are things like building your online presence, your website creation. You could spend $100, you could spend $10,000. What are you going to spend as an author? Hosting and maintenance, which has annual costs, marketing tools that are email related, so your email service provider, social media management tools. There are so many places we can spend money. Your branding, headshots, logo design, all of those branding things that help establish your author persona. Networking and membership fees, that's the fifth one. So that would be costs for joining professional organizations like the Alliance for Independent Authors, for instance, attending networking events, joining online communities. If you're a romance writer like Author Ever After, gotta say. Then the sixth one, office setup and supplies. So this one might be something that you don't have to spend on until you realize, I need an ergonomic chair because I'm spending so much time in this old piece of furniture, and you want to take care of your health too. I'm sure someone else is talking about that one. Computer, printer, all the multicolored Post-it notes and stationery that you need because you're an author and we always need those things, a writing tiara to get in the zone. I bought one this year. I'm not sure if I'm going to put it on my taxes or not, but claim it. But I do use it for writing. So, business registration and legal fees. So depending on where you are in the world, you might want to register your business name, which would be your publishing imprint. That can be a little bit or a lot of money. Legal fees for setting up an LLC, if you feel like you want to do that and have an established business. And then some states, I don't know that any provinces do, but in the United States, some states require you to have a business license, even if you're working from home as an author. So figuring out those things, there are fees. Just two more: banking and accounting. So those are your expenses for setting up a separate bank account, because you don't want to run your business through your regular family pot of money. Accounting software, potentially hiring an accountant or a bookkeeper. And then finally would be insurance. So those are the things you want to consider if you're going to be protecting your assets in your work. So that's, I mean, just thinking about that, you could easily spend $10,000 before you ever publish a book. Or dollars, euro, pound sterling, whatever it is, right? And people do.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's going to be, and there'll be people looking at that list and going, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. To sort of calm the old nerves a little bit, from your experience in your own writing, and then with the students that you've worked with and the people in your community, have you noticed that there's perhaps one or two that really are the ones that you need at the beginning? They should be the focus, and the rest can come later.
Well, I would say, I don't know that there's one or two that you need, but there are some that people just are spending on without really thinking, right? Like the education and training. I have not met an author yet who doesn't have lots of craft books, who hasn't attended either online conferences or summits, paid for those things. We're already spending money in lots of these places. We're just not keeping track of them. And if we're not keeping track of them, then I can tell you from my experience, from the experience of working with other authors, they get to the end of the year and they're like, I had no idea that I spent that much money, right? Like, it's so easy to say, oh, it's only $49 for this thing. And that only $49 or $149, or it's Black Friday and all of the deals are coming up and you're like, this is a great deal. And then you realize you've spent thousands of dollars. I would say it's easier to back away and look at the things that you don't need to spend money on immediately. Branding, I would say when you're first launching, do your best. Like, get a friend to take a good headshot. Just do your best for choosing colors and fonts and make things look organized. Your website, please don't invest in thousands of dollars for your website. Nobody is going to be going there with any amount of, like, you're not going to get thousands of people there. So have a presence. You can do that honestly, you can do that if you use card.co for like $10 a year. And they've got beautiful templates that are good enough. I'm all about the good enough until you start earning money. Yeah, this ergonomic chair, I went for so long until my back was hurting before I bought a proper chair, right? Do you need one? I don't know. That would be something, your health is important, I'd invest there. But and the law, follow the law. If you're in a place where you need to have a license, that would be another one that I'd say yes. And sorry, one more, banking. So banking, many banks will let you set up a sub account. You can absolutely use a sub account within your primary account for your business. Just make sure you set it up so that any of your Amazon or all of your royalties filter to the sub account as opposed to your main checking and savings. And that shouldn't, in most cases, cost extra money, but it's a really important thing to do.
Yeah, I've made so many mistakes in my mistakes. I've had so many learnings in my author career to date, particularly around finance. You were just mentioning the amount of work that we can spend on things. There are a number of online courses. I'm addicted to online courses. I love them. So I'm a sucker for that. And then, yeah, as you say, even those craft books, it's only $2.99, $5.99 on Kindle, and you download it. But before you know it, that's all adding up over the course of a year. But actually, one of the more sensible things that I did do, and I was advised to do this early on, exactly as you're saying, set up that separate bank account. And so any money that you do make from your books goes into that. And particularly in the early days, certainly it's not that there's a lot of money going in there, but just psychologically, I found it to be marvelous, because I can see there is something coming in there. I have made some money this month, and it feels really good, and it's really motivating and encouraging. If I just keep going, this could get bigger and bigger and bigger. And it also was a little bit of, I think I felt more professional as well, which then in turn makes me turn up for my writing differently.
No, that is a really great point. It is true. And those little ones, like you say, like that little bit of money coming in at the beginning, it is something to celebrate. It absolutely is. And that little bit might just get lost in the mess of all the other income and expenses. And so, yeah. So from an income point of view, I think for psychologically, it's really valuable too. Yeah.
So if we're thinking about, okay, well, how do we decide what we're going to spend our money on, or how we're going to allocate these resources? I wonder what kind of steps or suggestions you have for our listeners today.
So, if you don't have an extra $10,000 or pounds or euro to launch your book publishing business, because hello, you also need to have money to put into that first book, right? Like hiring an editor and a cover designer and all of those things. I would say that step one is to give yourself a budget. It's really truly to look at what you can afford to put into your business that is not going to cause hardship for your family or for your own well-being. Have a number in mind, because like you are going to find 100 things to spend your money on. So you don't want to have, like I said, that oh crap moment at the end of the year that you've just spent too much. Almost every business. So I was a business plan mentor, I guess. The credit union would get applications for business loans, small business loans, and small business loans were like $50,000 to $100,000. Like that was a small business loan. And if they got an application and they had confidence in the entrepreneur or the business, but the business plan wasn't solid or the cash flow wasn't solid, that's when they'd hire me and I would work one-on-one with them. And the thing to keep in mind is when you're doing your budget, very few businesses break even in the first year. And I know in publishing, we think like there are no overhead expenses because we work from home and such. But if you're thinking as a business, think as a business. You should be investing, or it's not you should be investing. If you are investing in your business, putting aside that money, it will take time to earn it back. You probably won't make it back on your first or second or even your third book. And that's okay. That's not a failure if you've budgeted for it. So I think it really is, it's a little bit of a mindset piece, just getting your head around thinking that, if this were any other business and you were going to a bank to get a loan to start it, you would have a process for understanding the income that was coming to pay off the money that you borrowed so that you could launch. I don't know how, is that helpful?
Yeah, no, I think it is. I think just the very fact of saying, give yourself a limit, an upper limit on how much you're going to spend. I did not do that. I did not get that advice when I was first starting, and I spent far too much money. And of course, later realized, oh, I'm not going to make that back for a long, long time. And so then I've had to kind of readjust all of that. And there was that level of disappointment that, oh, am I failing again? I can't get this right again. Is this something else that's just not going to work out for me? So I really appreciate the fact that you've highlighted that most businesses don't recoup what they put in there for the first year. And I mean, I would suggest even longer than that, actually. It takes time.
In fact, with the credit union, we would do I would do, it was a lot of work, three-year cash flows. So they didn't expect to see a profit until the end of year 3 or somewhere in year 3. And we would do, and you can do this for yourself, the cash flow spreadsheet that I'm going to give, that Emma's going to provide to you. I've changed the categories from what I would use with kind of your generic when I was working over there for authors, so that some of those fields are filled in and a little bit clearer for you. But like, for instance, let's say you have $1,000 that you can safely put in, and you put in all of the expenses that you want to spend on launching your business and on that first book, and you realize, wow, I don't have the money. Give yourself like the loan, give yourself the pretend loan, so that you can figure out, well, how long will it take me to recoup this? If that I can't recoup it, in the year. And the cash flows that I would have to do would be like what you expect you're going to be making expenses that you anticipate and income that you anticipate. That was the first one. And then we do a slow start. So I do not recommend that you do this if you've never done it before. It's painful and it's discouraging because you're looking at a lot of red on your spreadsheet. But just to give you a sense of, as a business, this is what they go through. A slow start would be your expenses are higher and your income is lower. And then we would also do the fast start, which would be expenses are the same because they never go down, but your income, you kind of launch faster. And there, for some businesses, are really negative implications for launching too fast. And I mean, we've heard authors too, as well, who like they have this sudden rise and all of a sudden there's burnout because you're trying to maintain something, right? So there are all kinds of things that you can see in a spreadsheet that give you information that's valuable, that keep you healthy mentally, emotionally, physically.
Yeah, totally. And I'm one who will kind of hide my head in the sand a bit when it comes to numbers, and I've had to gradually get better at that and be more dispassionate about them and kind of understand, as an authorpreneur, as this small single person business, I get to have my creative hat that I wear when I'm creating the books and doing all the fun stuff and the bit that I enjoy. And then I get to have this marketing hat when I'm connecting with people and telling people about what I'm doing. But I also have to have a sort of business hat on as well. And it's the least fun for me. Some people really enjoy it, but for me, it's the least fun. But I've had to adjust my mindset around that and understand that this is, if I want longevity, if I want to do this for the long haul, which I do, then I need to grapple with this and slowly but surely understand it, make changes, and so that I can have that success that I want later on. So I think there's, I don't know if you would agree, but there's definitely, for many of us who are artists, are creatives, we have to have a little bit of a mindset shift so that we know, just to get to grips with the basics of numbers and planning and kind of looking forwards.
Oh, I 100% agree. I think I'm a bit of an anomaly that I come from this background with, I'm an anomaly, and I don't even love doing it for myself. Like, total transparency, it's way easier to do it for somebody else because, as you say, the dispassion is there. It's not my business. And I can, when I'm looking at a salsa company, that was one of the businesses that I did. It's really a lot easier for me to look at it from the outside and see where this gentleman could be saving money, where he, when I was working with him, was like, well, I can't save money there because, and he had emotional reasons why he had to do things certain ways. So yes, 100% easier to be doing somebody else's. I don't know. It just occurs to me, can we buddy up and do each other's cash flows? I don't know. Would that be fun or horrible? It
would certainly be eye-opening. I think it'd be really eye-opening. Yeah.
You'd have someone saying, really, do you, someone other than your spouse saying, did you really need to spend that money there?
Yeah, no, totally. So if there's someone like me out there who's, gung-ho and so enthusiastic about that first book and just, well, yes, let's kind of spend all the money that we've got, how can we start to just rethink our mindset around finances and around money? Because if you think about it, more kind of societally, it's a lot of people feel that it's impolite to talk about money. It's rude. It's not what women talk about. We don't talk about that. It's not for women, or we feel it's very private, and we're maybe a bit embarrassed to talk about how we're spending our money and what our incomes might be. I wonder if you have any thoughts about how could we maybe start to just sort of change that a bit and realize it doesn't need to be, we don't need to be embarrassed about it. We don't need to take it too personally. This is just a fact. Money comes in, money comes out. It's about the business and not about us as an individual, I think.
Well, I mean, you've just summarized that beautifully. That is all true. And thinking long term, I mean, this is the struggle for creatives, right? Thinking like an investor, not thinking like a creator. So, buy yourself the writing tiara, use that writing tiara or whatever it is, your ball cap, and that's your creative ball cap. Take it off and buy yourself something else. What is it? What are those things that accountants used to wear with the something that they, I don't know, they used to have that, like in old British movies, right? There was something, anyway, buy yourself one of those little accountant's hat things and think like an investor. So especially in writing, you have to have that mind shift. Every dollar that you spend, you can look at as an investment in your future success. So that's one thing. When you get to the end of the year, don't think, rats, I've blown it, look at all the money I've spent. Sit back and go, okay, I spent more than I thought, but this is an investment in my future, because we're not throwing this money away. If we buy pro writing aid and we just haven't used it, it's still there for us. You know, the courses are giving us information. So the potential long-term benefits are the way investors think, right? So do that.
Mm-hmm.
Reinvest in your business. This is one thing, like your income and the royalties that you make from your books. This is where having that other bank account comes in really handy. Should be partly funneled back into your author business so that you can, without any guilt, invest in maybe another level of editing or a book coach for the next book or a different cover designer. So that's something that a business does. Businesses reinvest in themselves. Diversify your income streams. So this is something that's like all the buzz right now at the beginning of 2024 is selling direct. What are the opportunities that you have to make more money with the book that you have written or the books you've written? Can you bundle books into a box set and turn that into another income source? Can you start a Ream subscription model or Patreon? Can you do a Kickstarter? Like, what can you do to use the assets you have or are going to create another income stream? That's what a smart business does.
Mm-hmm.
Build a financial buffer. So I just had in 2023, I launched a book that I invested more in than I've ever invested in a book launch. And it did not pay back. I mean, it earned out my investment, but not the way I expected. And that left me in a situation where my expenses and income in my real life weren't matching up. I had a buffer, thank goodness. I no longer have a buffer. So now I'm in a different situation where I have to be working differently to build that buffer. It's really important. You don't want to have to stop writing and going and getting another job that fills your time. So that's it. And plan for scale. So that kind of comes with the reinvesting in your business. You as a creator, the value you bring to your business are your books. So if there are things that are taking 5 hours a week from your writing, like doing your emails to like, you know, planning all of your social media and stuff, if you can find a PA to take that away and you can look at your budget and say, if I write for an extra 5 hours a week, my book will be able to come out this much sooner, which means I'll be able to generate income this much sooner. Figure out where you can put your things you don't love doing to somebody else. So that you can do the thing that you love and that will ultimately make you money. And the last one is, for gracious goodness sake, plan for tax season and your retirement, right? Don't forget, if you're making money, you are paying taxes on that income. You have to claim it. So you don't want to get hit at the end of the year with like, holy cow, there's an extra $1,500, euros, pounds sterling that I didn't expect I was going to have to give Mr. Taxman.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure I have in my account, I have a special line, which is taxes like that. There's I've been self-employed since 2000, the January 1st, 2000. So we're at 24 years now. One of the sub bank accounts I have is specifically for taxes. And because I know what my tax burden is, I take 30% of every dollar, 30 cents, and I drop it into there, because at the end of the year, I ultimately almost always have more money than I need, because I also have expenses that go against the income, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be stuck in the place where you're doing where am I going to find that extra money?
Yeah, I am the same. I was advised to get a tax account, and again, just set up a separate account, and every month, a certain 20% here I do, 20% goes into that account.
Mm.
And it is nice to know, okay, that is covered. And like you, I know I'm not going to be spending all of that on tax. And so it'll be nice to have that little buffer at the end of the year as well, which just gives me that reassurance. And I know some people, I'm a believer in paying tax. I know some people don't like it and don't like the idea of it. But one of my one of my mentors, she reframed it, and I thought this was a nice reframing for anybody who's feeling a bit, I don't want to do that, is the more tax you pay just shows how well you're doing, that your business is doing well, your business is thriving, and that is a good thing. And I just really enjoyed that kind of flipping the mindset on that and a new way of thinking about it.
Yeah, no, I love that too. I'm like you. I don't have a problem paying taxes. I appreciate all the value that I get in Canada from my taxes that I pay. So
yeah. Again, another kind of sensitive subject, I think, but one that we have to address. It's there and we can't hide from it. It's got to be it's part of business. It's a cost of business.
Yeah, and it's interesting. There's something called the Romance Author Mastermind that Skye Warren has run a number of times, and I've attended twice. And one of the things that makes that conference quite different from others, and it's just romance authors, mid career to what is above mid career romance authors, apply and can attend. But they talk about money, and it's a beautiful thing. And I don't know if it's because we also talk about sex and, at the dinner table, that we can talk about money a little more easily. But it's really, if you can find peers who will talk to you about the financial situations that they're in with their book launches and where they're spending money. And it's quite empowering, really, because you realize what you see is not always the reality of what that author is experiencing in terms of their profits, right? It can be very empowering.
Yeah, yay. Well, we won't be able to chat to our listeners about that today, but you do have the budget planner for people, just to help them get more to grips with their author business, their authorpreneur business. So you mentioned it earlier. Can you just tell us a little bit about it, just to whet the appetites?
Right. So what it is it's a spreadsheet. It's not sexy, but it should help you kind of figure out, have a look ahead. So this is perfect. We're at the beginning of 2024. It's a perfect time to start just looking at where your income and expenses are going to be in a cash flow situation, and do some proper planning for yourself and your authorpreneur business.
Yeah. Lovely. Thank you, Danica. I really appreciate this. I think this is an important conversation to have, and I couldn't think of anybody better to have it with. So thank you very, very much.
It was so delightful, always delightful to talk to you, and good luck all you authorpreneurs in meeting all of your goals in 2024.
Yay.